Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie and it's the end of a beautiful day, although it was really hot today. But I did want to give you a quick update tour of my yard. Things have changed a bit. There's things that are blooming, things that are growing, and I wanted to show you what's coming on in my garden. So the first thing I wanted to update you on is my really sad forest pansy redbud. Now it has completely died. I am really sad about it. I'm going to have to get it removed. These leaves are slightly alive, but I think everything, like at the ends, they're crunchy. I was hoping it would pull out of it, but this tree did not make it. And a lot of the redbuds in this area haven't made it, and I think it was the dry winter, the early freeze that we had in the fall, and just the general weird conditions we've had. Supposedly they're a little bit more sensitive to environmental conditions, so I'm really sad because this is one of my favorite trees. One thing that makes me happy though is we've got little buds. Hopefully it'll focus. We've got little buds on my jujube tree. They're getting ready to open. I think the ones up on top are open because I've seen pollinators fly back and forth. Now we get little parasitic wasps that pollinate this tree for me. And we're going to have a heavy fruit set again, it looks like. Right here we have my June berries, and I've actually had a couple of them that were ripe. Let me see if I can find a ripe one for you. Okay, first I want to show you the unripe ones. If you notice, these look a little more red in the video than they do in real life, but if they have any red on them at all, they're not quite ripe. If you look at this one right here, it's fully purple all the way to the stem, and that's when it's the best. See, it's got a little bit of red on the stem end, but the rest of it is dark, and this is when it tastes fantastic. Yeah, that is perfect. The birds have started to get them. I've seen the robins all over them, but we have plenty to share. So we have this Juneberry. And then we have this one. The ones on top here are a little more ripe than the other one, but they're absolutely gorgeous this year. They're really happy. Here we have my passion vine. They're starting to put on a little bit of growth. They're not dead, but they're not growing as fast as I would like. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens with these. This area I thought got a lot more sun, and it's not getting as much sun as I thought it would. It's actually south facing, but for some reason, this area right here, everything back here and that way gets full sun all the way to the house. But here, the sun ends right where the weed mat ends, unfortunately. Now in Utah, we're having an extreme drought, but as you can see, my lawn is really green. I think this is because this back here gets a lot of shade because I am only watering this twice a week, about 10 minutes. Now I will turn the sprinklers on this side, which is having a lot harder problem because it's on a hill and it gets full sun. I will turn the sprinklers on a third time of the week for about 5 minutes, just so that that whole area doesn't die. The areas around the edge are a little more green because they get the neighbor's water also. Next spring, I'm going to get a pollinator for my Dapple Dandy Pluot because the Santa Rosa plum is not pollinating it correctly. We had a ton of blooms on it, but we've only got 5 fruits. And here's here's 2 of them. And they are so delicious. So what I'm going to need to do is I am going to get a Flavor King Pluot and a Flavor Supreme Pluot and plant them over in the food forest area. Those are supposed to be better pollinators than the Santa Rosa plum for this. We've got my 2 garden beds ready. This one right here, I'm getting ready to plant cucumbers. We've also got red roselle or Jamaican hibiscus planted, and this is the first time I've grown this, so I'm just waiting to see how it does. We've got some new growth on it. but I'm excited to see what it does. It's supposed to get huge if it does well. My squash are starting to finally put in new growth, and as you can see, I've got my irrigation in. Hopefully I'll get some good squash this year. One really big problem I've had at the top of my hill is squash bugs. I'm hoping they haven't found this area yet, or I may need to start spraying them. We've got a ton of pears. They're growing quite well. I haven't had time this year to put bags over them like I did last year, and I probably should have, but I'm not seeing any damage yet. And I probably won't get time this year to put them on. I thinned my apples. I'm getting very few apples this year because it overbore last year. We'll see what we can do next year, because I think it's just going to bear alternately every year. They're looking really healthy. Nothing has died in my food forest yet. This is my pomegranate. The flowers there will not form fruit this year because it's just barely been planted. We've got my fig tree. No new growth on that yet, but it's still looking pretty healthy. We haven't lost any more leaves on the Giro persimmon, but there's also not any new growth, so I'm really trying not to worry about it. I'm hoping this does well. I'm really excited about it. The improved Celeste fig is doing well. It's got a very different leaf shape than the Chicago Hardy, which is over here. And it'll be interesting to see the difference in the fruit. The bananas are struggling, but you know, this was a whim that I bought these. It's supposed to be a Zone 7 banana. If they survive to this winter, I'm planning on putting up a large protection for them so that we can see if we can get bananas next year. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do, but it's fun to try. Here's a picture of all the current fruit that I have. It's not ripe yet, but it's starting to change color. We'll see how they do. Some of them are not really increasing in size very much. And it doesn't look extremely happy. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I'm wondering if it's getting too much water, but we'll see. Everything else here looks really healthy. There are no buds on my hydrangeas, but they're looking so much healthier than last year. I think the late fall kills all the buds all the way back down because they have to grow back from the ground when usually they don't grow from the ground. Then the flower buds form near the fall. Honeyberry is looking healthy still, although it's been eaten to death by grasshoppers. I haven't seen too many more grasshoppers, so I'm hoping that nolobate that I put down is working. We planted a new Japanese forest grass just because I think they're pretty. All of my sea kale died back, but I think I'm starting to see new growth down at the base. I don't know what this one is doing. There's a little bit of new growth down there. Just think it got way too hot for it. This one is not doing well. There is no new growth on my poor little blue banana honeyberry, but I've heard sometimes it takes until fall to get the new growth. We'll just wait and see. There's only one sea kale that is doing well, and it's this one right here. So we'll see how that goes. This is also a new one that I've never grown before. The pawpaw that lost all its leaves is doing well and is growing back. It looks very healthy, so I have high hopes for that. This one's a KSU chapel. The Shinko Asian pear is also looking really good. And then my gardens are really doing well. And I decided not to give up on my raspberries. I figured out that the irrigation on the raspberries was bad. It wasn't working anymore, so I replaced it with a larger irrigation hose, a larger drip hose. And I added irrigation outside the bricks on each one of my grapes. They had irrigation on the inside that was attached to the garden bed, so I detached that, and now they're attached to the front bed over there. So they'll only get watered twice a week, which is all that they'll need. And because of changing out the water, I have ripe raspberries, and they're really tasty, so it makes me really happy. And they're so good. Getting ready to replant this bed. I think most of it's going to come out in a little bit. This bed did not grow very well, and I think what happened is I did not put enough fertilizer in it. Strawberries are putting on new growth. I'm excited about that. And the cabbages and kohlrabi are doing phenomenal. I'll put a picture up at the top and show you what my last cabbage looked like and the kohlrabi. You can see, let me see if I can pull the leaf away. You can see the size of that kohlrabi, and it's not woody at all. They're really good. So this bed is probably going to need to be fully harvested pretty soon here and then cleared out. And I'm going to move the frame here, the cold frame, down to my lower beds and just leave the cold frames off of these beds. The onions are starting to bulb up a little bit. They're looking good. I cleaned the coriander out of them because the coriander had completely taken over. I didn't get to it fast enough, and hopefully it doesn't affect how big the bulbs get on the onions. Garlic is just about ready to harvest, and we're going to have a ton of it. It's looking good. I've already reached way down to feel how big the bulbs are, and the bulbs are pretty big, so they're doing well. And I've already got tomatoes coming on. Oh, why does that look like that? Oh, I may need to come and water. This may not be getting enough water. Look at that right there. It's wilting. But if you look down here, you can see my little San Marzano tomato. These right here are the black seaman, and they're determinate tomatoes. I'm not pruning them the same way as I'm pruning the other tomatoes. But, oh, look at that. This is the first time I've seen it. Right down there, there's a little black seaman. Determinate tomatoes are going to put all their tomatoes on at once. All the rest of these are San Marzano, black seaman in the middle. And then over here, look at all those Jetstar tomatoes. I'm wondering if we're going to have tomatoes by the 4th of July. And every single one of these has tomatoes on them. I'm really excited. My peppers, I probably need to jump up here really quick and water them. These are the bell peppers. The jalapenos are struggling. And then these are the bananas. But the middle row, the other set of banana peppers, they're setting fruit, which are about ready to harvest. You know, they're still just slightly a little bit too green. But once I harvest those, maybe they'll start putting on some size. And then, surprise of all surprises, these are Chinese mountain yams that I purchased on a whim, threw them in the bed thinking they wouldn't grow, and they came up. So we'll see how those work. We'll do a video on them if they do well. Peas are absolutely fantastic. These are snap peas, so you can eat the pods, and I've just been harvesting tons of them, so they're doing really good. And as you can see, I've got little sun gold cherry tomatoes starting. Looks like I've got to tie the tomatoes up again. Came up and thinned my peaches. I'm going to have a huge crop of peaches and nectarines. This is the Lemon Alberta. Right here, these are my 3 peaches in the same hole. This one up here is the one that I've never been able to thin enough and that it keeps breaking. This is my O. Henry. And then over here is my nectarine, and there were so many nectarines on it. Hopefully I thinned them enough, but I'm already seeing a cluster that didn't get thinned. And the cherries are just about ripe. This year we've had a real issue with aphids on the cherries, but we do have a ton of ladybugs that are helping out. As you can see in the back there, there's one of our magpies already harvesting the top, but the bottom is just about ready to harvest. Now I do get cherry fruit flies, I get the worms in there. You can see the little hole they make. But what I do is I put these through a cherry pitter and then soak them and all the worms come out. Now a lot of people don't like that idea, but that's what I do. And I will dry them, and they are so good dried. So we're going to get a ton of cherries. It's really doing good. All my little herbs that are behind my peaches and nectarines, they're getting ready to bloom. I've already been harvesting some of the lovage. And we're going to have a bumper crop of grapes. That's my Jupiter grape in the back. This is my Santa Rosa plum, and we've got a ton of plums coming on. I'm really excited about that. I think this area will do better because we removed the aspen trees, and that'll give a chance for this plum tree to get a little bit more sun. This is just the back of the apples and the pears up on my hill. Yeah, so I did purchase a new tree peony. It's been roasted by the sun, but I hope it survives. And this is my other tree peony right here that's done blooming. It's been absolutely gorgeous. So here we are in the front. The next project, which probably will not happen this week because of the heat, is reshaping this bed, leveling everything out. I've got to dig out all of the bricks here and reposition them. And then I'm going to fill the bed with some of the topsoil that we had for the back. But I did do some planting. This is I can't remember the name of it. It's it's a tidbit firelight hydrangea. That's what it is. Only gets 2 by 2. It's going to have red flowers in the fall, white flowers in the summer. And I'm really excited, but as you can see, it's already starting to burn because it's so hot. This area does not start getting sun until 3 p.m., but it's west facing, and so it's brutally hot when it does get the sun. And then here's another one. Hopefully they will do well. So I planted a ton of Schoenbrunn ground cherries, physalis. I have 6 of them all through this bed. They're doing well with the new drip irrigation system in place. All my lilies are just about ready to bloom. I have a bunch back here. Another Schoenbrunn physalis, and my pomegranate pulled out of it and is getting a ton of new growth. More lilies getting ready to bloom. And we have so many weeds. It's because I do not have mulch on top of this. Now, I probably will come through with Roundup. Yes, I do use Roundup, and spray all these weeds. And then eventually I'm going to get mulch in here. But it probably won't be until this fall because I've got to get the rest of this project done. This is my sunflower pawpaw. It's growing quite well. It's the last of my peonies, and I'm not sure the name on this variety, but it was really pretty. It was white. We've got some lavender waiting to be transplanted later. Hopefully I can transplant it next spring. Strawberries are spreading really nicely. This is a blue chiffon hardy hibiscus that's getting ready to, hopefully there's some blooms on it. There wasn't any blooms on it last year. But I just transplanted it and it seems to be doing okay. There's my Juliet bush cherry. It's got some burn on it, but I think it's going to pull out of it. I'm going to get 5 to 7 fruits off of this pawpaw. This is my full-grown, probably 10-year-old, 12-year-old pawpaw. And if you look really closely, you can see 3 pawpaws right there. Oh, there's a 4th one right there. I need to go through and count and see how many I'm going to get. Now, I've learned not to count my pawpaws before the end of the year because wind will sometimes come and knock them off. Sometimes they just drop. There's not, these trees need a pollinizer and I don't have one that's flowering yet to pollinize it, so sometimes I just don't get the amount of fruit that I'd like to off of it. I usually get 2 to 5 every year. This is my 3-year-old Pawpaw. This is a seedling variety, an unnamed seedling variety. I lost 3/4 of it last year because the irrigation died on the site. Now, I'm watering by sprinkler right now. As soon as I've finished putting in the hardscape in my front yard, all the paths in the hardscape, then I'm going to reshape this bed, pull out, the stuff that I don't want in here and replant everything. Definitely the pawpaws are staying. I am going to leave my little Alberta spruce because I think he's cute. The medlar will stay. Everything will stay, but it just may get moved around. And that will happen next spring. And I'll be planting and reshaping that bed and putting in a ton of new plants. I'm really excited for next spring when I get to plant. Then the last place I wanted to show you was this side yard that I finished last year. It's growing in really nicely. I did purchase another Daphne and it seems to be doing okay. It's got a little bit of transplant shock. And I've been trying not to water it too much because I've heard that they don't like a lot of water. I've got to come back in and cut back all of my irises to make it look better. We've got the quail coming in and digging through here again. The little quail make a mess. I've got a little sedum surrounded by pansies that I'm surprised they haven't died. It doesn't get a lot of water, and pansies need shade and water, and this is full sun and very little water, so for some reason they're doing well, and I think they're just cute. And then my summer, I can't remember the name of it. I may have to put it on the screen. But this is a hardy hibiscus, and it's going to have a ton of blooms. They're nice pink blooms with a reddish center. And then you've got the red leaves to go with it, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. My hypericum, or St. John's wort, is growing beautifully. This variety, I can't remember the name of it again, but you get the red berries and yellow flowers, and they're just gorgeous against the red foliage. So it's doing really well this year. These are some of my new lilies, and aren't they gorgeous? This one turned out to be really pretty. We've got my yellow Moonshine Yarrow that I transplanted from the backyard, and it's going to contrast really nicely with my chaste tree that is just about ready to bloom. This is going to have brilliant blue blooms against the brilliant yellow flowers, and I think it's going to be really pretty. One of these days we're going to get blossoms on my little pugster butterfly bush. And there we've got my lemony lace elderberry, but as you can see, the heat and the sun is just scorching the leaves. It's the older leaves that are getting scorched, not the new ones though, so we'll see how that survives. This little lily, I don't know what it's doing. It's just not opening properly, and I'm worried about it, but maybe it'll do better next year. My Golden Falls Redbud is pulled out of it, and it's getting new growth and looking really good, so I'm not as worried about that. We've got buds coming on my little summer, I think it's I'll put the name on the screen on this one, but this is a hydrangea paniculata that can do more full sun. Now these trees are actually shading it a little bit at the end of the day, so hopefully it won't burn as bad as it did last year, but it's looking really good this year. This is my pistachio. It's looking really good, a lot of good new growth. And we've got several pineapple ground cherries here. This is my chokeberry that I've really got to transplant somewhere else. It's getting too much water from the neighbors. But the water does not seem to bother my elderberry. This is a black tower elderberry. It'll just be narrow and tall. And still, no little figlets on my figs. But it's growing. I may need to go in and thin it out. I need to read more on how to prune figs and grow them in cold climates. In California, I would just let it go, and it did beautifully. Here, I'm just not seeing any new figs. Let's see if there's anything at all. Nope, no little figs. But the new one right here, the Desert King fig, this one's a Chicago Hardy. And this is a Desert King, and the Desert King seems to be putting on new growth and doing well in its new home. This is one that I started by cutting. And I just wanted to show you my pot. I am not normally really good at pots, but this year's pot I think just knocked it out of the park for me. I love the purple foliage. This Petunia was grown by, I think it was Olson Greenhouse. Brian Lloyd, you know, I'll put a link up at the top on his greenhouses. He came and did a pot with me last year, but I think this is one of their additions, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. I love the color against the dark purple potato vine, contrasted with the yellow of the marigolds. And then eventually the grass will fill in also and make a nice centerpiece. And then we have the white bacopa, which I hope it doesn't get eaten up by the pansies, but we've got a little bit of white bacopa peeking out on both sides. So it's just done really well. Now it's been a week since I released my last garden tour, and I haven't been able to release any videos because it's been an exceptionally busy week. But since I did that video, I found a couple of really exciting things that I'd like to add. Let me go show you what I found in my grow room. Now I will link a video that I made above, I think it was last March, on growing ginger. And if you look really closely, you can see 2 starts. These just happened a couple of days ago. I had given up on it. I did keep watering the pot because I heard that sometimes it takes a long time for them to sprout, and I dug them up a couple of times and they weren't dead. But I've got ginger that sprouted, and I am going to end up putting it outside. We'll see what happens. So I'm really excited about this. Let me show you the second thing that I found. Now it's really bright. I'm sorry if the lighting is bad, but this is where my citrus and my avocado has stayed. My avocado has not liked it much out here. It's burned. You can see the burned leaves. I think I'm not watering it enough. The citrus plants are extremely happy. They really like it out here, and I've only had to water them once a week. And I think the reason for that is that their root systems are still small. The pots are large, so the pots, you know, they're not taking up as much water. The avocado, I think I need to water it a little bit more often though. So we're going to switch that up and see if we can get this avocado to start sprouting new leaves. But let me show you what I found on my citrus plants. I think, you know, I'll link a video up at the top about when I planted these trees. They were in flower. First thing that I noticed, we've got another flower. But since this pot has stayed in this position since I put it out here, I did not notice I have a baby lemon. I am so excited about that. It's really happy. It's not going to drop. I am going to have a lemon this year off of my citrus plant. This one is my Owari Satsuma mandarin, and it did not fruit, but we've got large amounts of new growth, as you can see. I may have to figure out a way to shape everything, but let me make sure that's not coming off under a graft. Well, I'll need to make sure that's not coming off under a graft, because if you notice, the leaves look a little bit different. But it's still happy, and I'm excited. So we'll see what happens. So now it's starting to get dark, so I've got to end this video, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed my videos, please like and subscribe, invite your friends to watch, and go enjoy your garden adventure.